To me, generosity is living out of our blessing and our plenty. I think that in this country, we are incredibly blessed. And realizing that and really holding on to that, I think that, at least for me, there's not anything else you can do except give back. I love the fact that we're having a generosity campaign and not a capital campaign, because I don't think you can ever stop growing in generosity. It's one of those things like your faith. The more you practice it, the more you realize you don't know. The more you give, the more you know you can give, and the more you know you're called to give. I became a believer as an adult, and one of the ways that God started to educate me was in generosity, and particularly financial generosity. We did a course called Crown Ministries. I don't even know if it's still around, but it was all about what God has to say in His Word about money, and it's incredible. I wish I had the number to tell you how many times money is mentioned in the Bible, but that really opened my eyes. As an adult believer, I was already working. I already had money that I earned, and it really changed my perspective to one of I am being blessed with opportunities and with a job and then with what I'm making, and I want to give back. I want my heart to want that. That's the posture that I want to live with. I think money's a really good way of revealing God, that God uses to reveal Himself to us. He tells us in Scripture that our lives are not our own. And if my life isn't my own, how much more so is my money not my own? And I think that in this country and in our world, we cling too tightly to money. We put an emphasis on money that God never really intended us to have. And money, it cuts both ways. It can be the thing that separates us from God, and it can be a sweet, sweet thing when you surrender it to the Lord and allow Him to use your resources. I don't think I've ever not been joyful about giving. I was astounded to learn after a few years of being a believer that giving is actually a gift, a spiritual gift. And I was like, woohoo, that explains some of this, why I think one translation of the Bible talks about not a cheerful giver, but a hilarious giver. And I would be that way sometimes. And I think that finding joy in giving is a learned art, and I think that the more you give, the more you'll learn to love it. I have a really good story about generosity. When my husband and I were early believers, my husband came home one day and said, I think we should send a check to these people. And he didn't really hardly know the people. I totally didn't know the people. All I knew was that these folks were in seminary in another state. And I thought, okay, all right, we're going to be obedient. And we sent them a check. Well, immediately they called us and said, how did you know? our pantry had a half a jar of peanut butter in it. We literally didn't know how we were going to continue to eat. And that was so sweet of the Lord to reward us with knowing how important our gift was. But it has taught me that over the years that if my husband says, hey, you know what, I think we should send so-and-so something, I say, okay, let's do it. That's great. So often, we send a gift, or we're obedient to what we feel like we're called to, but we never hear of it. And honestly, we don't give things away to be thanked or recognized or anything else. But it's so sweet, to know that what you did really was obedience and appreciated. I would like to say regarding our generosity commitment that I don't believe that God needs our money to accomplish the purposes that we're about here. But I think He wants us to give. I think He wants us to be bought in to the mission and the vision of Redeemer. And I think that giving is a door into our hearts, and that it works both ways. We give, and God fills our hearts, and then God fills our hearts and we want to give. So I think it is more about our obedience and allowing God to move in our lives and trusting Him than it is about any dollar amount. So I'd encourage you to pray. And don't give under compulsion. Don't give because you feel like you have to. Give because God's calling you out of the plenty that He's blessed you with, whatever that is, to be a part of this generosity commitment.